while we wait for others to stream in, my name is Fernn. I work for SC Ventures, one of the portfolio ventures called SC Nexus, Banking as a Service. But today, my role here is just a moderator. I like to keep things interactive, right? So instead of asking you guys questions first, I'm going to ask the audience here questions, yeah? Who here is interested to learn all about embedded finance? Good, interested audience. Who here is only for the free food? I like honest people. Okay, now last question from me. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or sideways on how you're feeling right now. Ready, 1, 2, go. All you liars, it's 3 o'clock right now, tea time, I know you're snoozing. I'm joking. Okay, so I'm gonna start right now. Today we've got a very, very good panel session. I'm unbiased because I'm just a moderator, right? So the session today is really about learning how do you do embedded finance for your business, right? So today we're gonna learn all about how we're gonna make embedded finance work. M5, embedded finance is M5, right? Short form for M5. Embedded finance, it is all about M5 and it's a trendy topic, but we're all here to do real commercial business. It's trendy because I say if it's on a book, it's real stuff. Yeah? Okay? So today we're really going to learn about M5 and what's going to happen is we have 45 minutes together. We're going to spend 30 minutes on panel discussion and then we'll leave the remaining 15 minutes for Q&A. Okay, so if you have any questions, hold it off till the last 15 minutes. I will make sure my 2 panelists here answer your questions. Alright, so just a bit of context setting. I think we're all here learning about embedded finance because it's a growing topic. Yeah, I think we all acknowledge that embedded finance is really going to redefine how customers interact with financial services. The sector and the segment here is growing. We know that the revenue opportunity is going to hit USD 51 billion by 2026. And in terms of transactional value, it's going to cross USD 7 trillion. A lot of money to be made here. The question is, how do we get it done? Right, and that's why we have you guys, right? So for today, who I have with me is I've got Aisya. Aisya is country head of Standard Chartered Nexus in Indonesia. And I have here with me the most sexy man in this room for the next 45 minutes is Yogesh. You see, he's giving you that pose, he's accompanying.
I was like, seriously?
He's the head of information and cybersecurity for Bukalapak. So those of you who are unsure or maybe you're new to this, Standard Chartered Nexus and Bukalapak, we actually announced our partnership last year. So essentially what's going to happen is, what has happened, not going to happen, what has happened is through this partnership and by leveraging the retail banking license of Standard Chartered in Indonesia, we are now able to provide financial services to the 140 million customers on Bukalapak and the 14 million MSMEs sitting on their platform. That's quite powerful because we're talking about scale and customer reach, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get Aisya and Yogesh to introduce themselves first, and then I will start to ask them very difficult questions, right? The key here is if you woke up not learning any new knowledge, then you blame me because I did not steer the question properly. Okay, so Aisya, over to you. Introduce yourself, please.
All right. Hi, everyone. So hopefully everyone is still energized as Fernn, like. Okay, so let me introduce myself. So I'm Aisya, so I'm the country lead for Nexus Indonesia. So we actually just launched together with Bukalapak last month in September. So now it's still very like a honeymoon period and very exciting period, right? After we've gone through a lot of things, long journey, and I think we will be we should be sharing to all of you guys in terms of our journey to make this happen. So, looking forward to have this insightful discussion with you guys. So,
I think we can hear without the mic, right? So.
We're recording.
Sorry, I didn't know. So yeah, I'm Yogesh.
Keep your pose,
So I had the security for Bukalapak. We have close to 30 entities, ex-10 chartered. So I think when Nexus was being built, a lot of entities, we had the contribution from security perspective. So I know a lot of people from Nexus. So I'm happy and very easy for me to relate that how Nexus is helping in different areas, different ventures.
Okay, so I quite like this panel session because we have someone from the business angle, and we also have someone from the cybersecurity angle, right? So hopefully we'll be able to answer all the questions that we have here today. So I'll kick off with the easy question, yeah? Why do embedded finance, right? And I think my first question would be for Aisya, right? Aisya, we are a very old bank, very, very old, 160 years old, right? So for an incumbent bank, why should we even bother about embedded finance or pursuing banking as a service, right? Are we not cannibalizing the traditional business?
Yeah, thank you for the question. That's very tough questions, I guess. Yeah. So I guess we're not cannibalizing the existing business, right? I mean, I know Standard Chartered is a large incumbent banks, 160 years, right? So actually, this is the first time for the bank that enables to target the mass market and underserved users at scale. So we're talking about scale, right? With Standard Chartered Nexus, we have platform and solutions to enable that. With our first partner, Bukalapak. So it's actually improving the accessibility, right? Comparing to the traditional banks, we don't have that luxury to basically to have an access to 100 million users. Digital platforms like Bukalapak, as an example, it's already everyday platforms that people are using it. It's going to be so much powerful. We embed the finance. Standard Chartered as a bank, we have banking products, banking capabilities from CASA, lendings, and now we embed it in the platforms, so it's going to be powerful. So for Indonesia specific, we have 270 million populations. And from 270 million populations, actually only 40%, 48% to be specific, that has a bank account. So we do still have a big opportunity for embedded finance in Indonesia. So that's why we are actually leveraging these solutions to partners that have millions of users. So it's actually larger the outreach with a bigger user base. So is that answer to your questions?
Yes. Do you guys believe her? Essentially what she's doing is financial inclusion, right? She's talking about financial inclusion and traditionally, a traditional bank like Standard Chartered, they wouldn't go for the mass market. But with banking as a service and embedded finance, we have created new reach into a new target segment, right? So yes, I believe you. So maybe my question to Yogesh, right? Yogesh, so Bukalapak is an e-commerce business, right? What are you doing with banking? Why do embedded finance, right? You guys are an e-commerce business. Why enter FS? Why partner us? You could have gone to apply for your own license, right?
How many of you have heard the name before, Bukalapak, and perhaps know what does it mean? No. So Bukalapak started in 2010, just to give a bit of history, and it literally means open a shop. So we have a platform which we have given to people to open a shop. It's Bukalapak, right? It's Lai saying which we use in Singapore. And Pak is the respect they give in Indonesia. So Bukalapak is known to be as an e-commerce platform, but it's not. It's an ecosystem. If you read the business we have Bukalapak, we have Mitra, we have grocery business, HelloFresh, we invested into bank, we have a bank now with Standard Chartered, we are into digital marketing, we are into online to offline selling, which is Bukalapak Mitra. So we have all in all close to 30 entities, not one entity. Hence, it's an ecosystem. When we talk about population, you see 290 million population, we have 140 million customers. So half of the population is with us already. So the strength is network, it's not just e-commerce. So we came to this area into finance and we were looking for a stronger partner. And I think Standard Chartered are the best partners. Being an ex-SCB, I can tell you a lot of things about SCB. So I used to manage all the regulations for SCB Singapore. I know SCB is the oldest bank, perhaps the first ATM they had here in Singapore is SCB. SCB is not treated as a foreign bank, it's treated as a domestically significantly important bank in Singapore. whereas FIs, CI inflies OCBC, DBS, and UOB, right? So from partnership perspective, I think brand perspective, capability perspective, we chose Stand Chartered definitely at that time. So, and it's going well. I think the results are quite well. We'll get to hear from my partner to see how are the results. But making sure that we understand it's not an e-commerce platform anymore. It's an ecosystem.
Ecosystem, yeah. So we kind of get that. So Bukalapak, not an e-commerce business, an ecosystem business. Okay, so people are here to learn about how to make embedded finance work, right? So I'll say this again. We're all here, closed room, safe space, which also means that we're going to share some war stories. Okay, so if you don't mind, let's talk about. We've gone live already. It's been a few years of very, very hard work. Let's just be very open and tell the audience here, right? Any war stories to share, because if you tell people that it's been a breeze and a walk in a park, no one's going to believe you. So let's start with the challenges first, right? What has happened in the past few years? What were some challenges that we faced? And let's just share it, right? Because I think it's beneficial for everyone. So Aisya, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I guess we actually started since 2018.
2018.
Yeah, 2018. So it's been 4 years. So specific for Indonesia, I mean, Indonesia is special, right? We have a huge populations, and from 4 years back then, everything evolves, even the regulations, right? So even the governments is actually trying to transform the digital economy, if you heard about Indonesia economic. And our central bank is also have an agenda of transforming the payment systems. So basically everything happened concurrently, right? So I think that's the biggest challenge. We have a big ambitions. The country also have a big ambitions, but it's happening concurrently. So sometimes when we actually want to go fast, the infrastructure is not that ready, right? So again, the challenge is we need to engage our stakeholders. Stakeholders doesn't mean just our partner, internal, but also like regulators, because everyone is actually starting to learn, especially embedded finance. We are actually one of the first traditional bank that basically having this embedded finance in Indonesia. There are some other banks, but we are the first. So even we are actually initiated the discussion with regulators at 2018. So they are still actually learning, right? So I think that's the biggest challenge. And then the second challenge is actually the biggest populations of the underserved. They are not really what I can say financial literacy. Their financial literacy is still quite low, right? So we found some challenge when we actually did a e-KYC, because we are the first bank to have a fully digital onboarding experience. The other digital banks still having the agent, the video call, customer service to do e-KYC, right? And we found challenge because they are not aware that in Indonesia, when you actually got your first ID is when you were 17 years old, and you don't bother basically to upgrade or to update, even if the quality of your ID is poor, right? And then when they try to onboard, then drop off happened because we cannot verify the ID. So this kind of the things that we face challenge, but at the same time we need to educate. We want to basically to scale, but this group of people needs a lot of educations, because it's part of how to actually build the financial inclusion in Indonesia. So that would be one of the biggest challenge that we had.
So I'll tell you a story, okay? So what I've heard is because in Indonesia, this is the first fully digital onboarding experience, correct? So some people tried to cheat the system. Anybody wants to guess how they tried to cheat the system? So we've got men putting on a hijab, and trying to assume another individual, right? But of course, right, technology works. They got rejected, right? But it also shows about how some people don't trust the system and just put on a hijab and they think that they can cheat the system, right? So on this topic, it's really about security, right? I'm going to point my question now to Yogesh. What are your thoughts on this, right? Because it's not just the regulators that need education, it's literacy for the warungs. How about the area of this whole embedding cybersecurity in M5?
It's a very broad topic, to be honest with you. I think we can talk whole day about this, but I'll try to take a minute and answer this question. And just to build on, outreach is the main reason why we're coming into this area, right? And you imagine that the traditional banking, if 48% people have a bank account now, with the digital banking, the numbers will be lower. The reason is literacy. People don't know. And how many of you believe that it's easy to launch a bank in Singapore versus Indonesia?
Okay, so who thinks it's easier to launch it in Singapore? Hands up.
It's much easier here. You have process, you have regulations. For an example, your eKYC, you have MyInfo, at least for PR citizens. And whole data is there. It's pulled up from there. System doesn't exist in Indonesia, for an example. eKYC becomes tough to integrate systems. If somebody's aware of the regulations in Singapore, you have a PDP Act, you have MASD arranging in place, you have MAS 644, 655, and number of notices, circulars in place. So anybody who is coming in here in this space knows what to do. But these things are missing in many countries, right? Indonesia got their first major mandatory paper just 3 weeks back. It's called the Personal Data Protection Bill, which was pending for years. Any of you heard about what was HORCA? Okay, HORCA is one of the biggest cyber attacks happened in Indonesia, and they took away 1.3 billion SIM user data, 1.3 billion, including government data. Very, very funny things happened. I can't say that here. Just go and read about this. You will see how funny the attack was, right? And after that, obviously, this act came into picture. So now, security becomes priority. Now, what happens in the fintech space? I'm from traditional banks. I'm from Standard Chartered, UBS, Credit Suisse. So I didn't know that myself, but when I went to Bukalapak, staying in Indonesia, I realized that we want to build systems, we want to be successful, but somehow security gets ignored. You ask any CISO, they will tell you that the money comes to CISOs when an attack happens, when there's fear. So it's very important that security becomes a trusted partner with the business, and business is proactive coming to security, right? Saying, what do we want to protect? Many businesses don't know what they want to protect. They're building, but if you ask them, what are your crown jewels, they don't know. It's reality, right? So we have to sit down and identify what do we have to protect. But initiatives like this, Nexus for an example, or building a bank, gives us opportunity to look into our own systems also. With the digital era, I would say now coming in, we are working from homes. I don't know how often you guys come to office, but I go to office twice a week max, right? 99% attacks in the last 5 years have happened through humans, and not any sophisticated hacker. Anybody heard about the Uber hack, which happened just a month back?
Yes.
Okay, 18 years old boy, convinced one of the privileged users that he is from the IT support team, took username, password, and second factor authentication from him. Imagine it. He gave it, the person. He convinced him that he's from the IT support team, he gave away everything. And now, I'm sure you guys know what is encryption and what is clear text. Uber had passwords in clear text in the PowerShell file. Passwords in PowerShell file. Imagine what they can do. They will steal. Small things where we have to focus on security and educate people. Now, with the banking, online banking, how do you set up your limits? How do you set up your transaction limits? You verify things, right, in Singapore. So, working from home, the biggest risk becomes the employee is the biggest risk now. Now, what a hacker has to do is perhaps compromise your home network, which is much easier to compromise. In office, you have a number of controls. At home, I'm not sure if any of you knows what is MAC filtering, right? How many have enabled that? How many have you enabled other controls in inbuilt router to secure yourself? So I think from our perspective, when we have money to protect, we have to be a bit more strict in how we put controls in place. We have to think broad rather than just traditional banking, that what we can do and what a hacker can do. We have to stay one step ahead. The key attack which you might have heard these days is ransomware. I'm sure you guys know what is ransomware. Any of you know what is ransomware as service? I'm serious. You guys know or not? You don't know? Okay. So ransomware is now being sold as a service. So you buy a ransomware, which is a malware, and they will tell you how to reverse engineer it, go inside it, you can change your own password, you can put 1, 2, 3, whatever. It's that easy. You buy it, all you have to do is now send it to somebody's network. So you're not writing a malware now, you're buying it. So ransomware as service is one of the biggest famous services right now in cyber industry. Phishing as service. These are now being served as services. Now, hackers don't have to write their own things. So now imagine when you're building a bank, when you're thinking, outreach to many people, what is the headache for the security guy? How many things a security guy has to protect? Hence, I'm trying to embed security into embedded finance. Sorry,
Okay.
long answer, but yeah.
No, I think it's important, right? But again, we're here to give the people what they want, right? And people here are really here to learn how do we make embedded finance work, right? So we've heard about the importance of cybersecurity. We've heard about the importance of looking for good partners, right? We've heard about early regulatory engagement because the entire industry is learning together. What are the top tips would you give the audience here? For anyone who's interested to do embedded finance or banking as a service, any top tips that you would give them? It's like passing the secret sauce over to the audience here.
Yeah, I guess you actually have mentioned that all right. I think the early engagement is very important, not to just limit to the regulators, because especially for Indonesia, we actually learning at the same time. Basically, we're doing it concurrently. Internal stakeholders is also important because, like Sayajara, we are actually, it's 160 years old bank. We have a lot of legacy of the process, systems. So we need to have like a very early engagement in terms of the alignment, what we want to achieve, right? Because it's not that easy, day-to-day operations with all of the internal stakeholders, and especially when we actually talk with the partners as well. So every day, we actually working closely with the partners, because we are two different entities, right? So it's a very tough to basically to align what we want to achieve together. So basically need to set the early the objective, and then clear objective for us to actually to align. And another point is actually when you start to have this kind of model, you need to have a strong team, right? So like Indonesia, we have a very competitive digital banking landscape. Hiring people is also tough, and we want it to have a diverse background. We don't want, just hiring everyone from banking, experienced banking, but we also wanted to have a diverse backgrounds, from fintech, e-commerce, because what we are trying to partner with is not just a fintech partner per se, right? We wanted to have a multi-across industry. So hiring is very important with a diverse background. We do it early, so we can have a very strong team basically when we actually run the business.
Yogesh, how about you? Any top tips for anyone who wants to do like embedded finance banking as a service here? Your forte is cybersecurity. So let's tell the audience here, right? What are the top tips that you would share?
So, what's the most important thing from a customer's perspective when they're doing banking with you? Trust. That's your bank, new bank. Yeah. So trust. If you lose the trust, I think you can't bank with that company anymore, right? You don't know if they can safeguard you or not. They can keep your money safe or not. Second important thing is how you comply with the regulations, right? we are trying to reach more people, but how do we keep the trust intact is very, very important for us, right? So one tip is, make sure that you have processes, procedures in place that, people trust you, number one. Number two is, in this era of fintech, the key thing which is happening is, we have to unlearn the practices we have learned. We have to relearn new ways, which are maybe not even invented yet. We have to invent them, know them. Third is we have to collaborate. We are collaborating to launch something new. That's number two. Number three, I think, when you start seeing things from a visionary perspective, you have a process, a workflow, a pathway in place already. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, right? So, making sure, being from security. Security is in your landscape, right? You do keep that inside because it's not the question of if, it's a question of when. And how would you respond to that? You see many, being from this field, so I read a lot about what's happening in the world, you will see people don't know what to do when they're attacked. They literally don't know. Just running, headless chicken, calling their consultants, nobody knows what to do. So it's very important that you know what to do. You have your disaster recovery practices in place from every perspective. You know what's your plan B. Many people don't have plan B. Yeah.
Okay, we actually have time for questions. I love this session, so many questions. Okay, come, we need a microphone. Oh, I love this. Sorry, youngest, healthiest looking man here. Send the mics out.
Hello, my name is Lawrence. First of all, I want to say I really enjoyed the panel. Fernn, I don't know if you have a background in entertainment, but you have a second calling if this one doesn't work out, okay? That sounded right.
That's my retirement.
No, so I'm from the crypto industry, and I feel like a lot of what you guys are doing with embedded finance is a space that we would like to, these are solutions we would like to provide. I'm just curious, what do you guys think about, do you see crypto blockchain as competitors? Do you feel like there's a way for us to collaborate, and do you see any kind of merging between sort of TradFi and crypto in embedded finance?
So I think to address your question, the question first, or?
That's okay, so you can answer.
Okay. So we don't see, like you when we ask threats, no. But definitely we can actually collaborate, right? Because we are embedded, we can actually complement, we can actually complement with all the banking products, right, to your platforms. So that's what it calls embedded finance, right? So we can actually collaborate. We have a variety of banking products that we can actually collaborate with you. So it's not a threat at all. It's not a threat. So we are actually open from different market and different industry. So it's not always e-commerce or marketplace. It's not like that. So we can actually definitely collaborate.
We see, the tip here is hold the mic first, and then you get to ask your questions. Okay, the gentleman next to you first.
Thank you so much. Yogesh, I thought there was impersonation fraud going on when I was looking at your picture. That's okay. Thank you for an enlightening session. I'm here from a regulator, and I'd like to understand, how does the regulator see you, and how does the regulator see you in the relationship that's working? Thank you.
So it depends on the location, in my view. For an example, we have a bank which is launched in Indonesia, so we have to comply with those regulations. But when we partner with somebody like Standard Chartered, they have a long history in complying with the regulations. Let's say GDPR, for an example, or MST or MG, they have built the compliance already, they have that experience. When they read OJK regulations, which is MAS for Indonesia, it's very easy for them to interpret and comply with those requirements. Those controls already exist, right? And then depends on the scrutiny of the regulators. Here, Standard Chartered being DCEP is being monitored, supervised, inspected every year, right? That might not be the same in Indonesia. So how regulators see that entity matters. If we are in Singapore, there'll be more scrutiny on us. Maybe in 5 years, there'll be more scrutiny in Indonesia also. There are more attacks, there are more regulations coming. So how they see us, they want to know that once we are sharing data, for an example, with Standard Chartered, how do we secure that exchange? So they want to see that architecture that, having done the security assessments, right? How will that data be secured by Standard Chartered, for an example? Now they're in Indonesia, the bank is in Indonesia, right? So once the eKYC is done, there was no regulation, that strong regulation. There were, but there was no mandate in place like PDP. Now that's in place. So now bank has to build that compliance with PDP. The 65 clauses, they have to go one by one and comply with that. So from regulators' perspective, it's all about securing that customer data, securing that transaction which is happening. But I think with the experience of Standard Chartered, that was easy to build.
So are you seen as a bank in Indonesia? Are you regarded as a bank and regulated as a bank?
No, so we at Bukalapak is seen as an, I would say, ecosystem. All right, we have so many businesses, so we have to comply with many regulations. But banking is an area where we have partnered with Nexus, and that entity has to be monitored more than any other entity.
So then the question back to
Yeah.
Indonesia.
Right.
You're the regulated entity.
Mm-hmm.
What is your relationship? And
Yep.
So actually, how the regulators see between our partnership, SCB and Bukalapak. So it's under the corporations. But again, the regulator is actually supportive of this kind of model in Indonesia specific, because it's gonna support and boost the financial inclusions. That's how they actually see us. They know that it's better basically to deal with the existing banks because we already have a relationship, and they know that we are actually building we are leveraging our own license, right? So from the regulator's point of view, it provides them more comfortable level, when they actually dealing with us, but we are partnering with the party like Bukalapak. Because they know, it's well governed. We already have an established process. The risk management is in place already.
So maybe to answer your question, all engagement with the regulators is led by the bank.
Yes, it's led by the bank.
It's led by the bank.
So basically, part of your proposition is outsourced, and the regulator is looking at that kind of relationship.
No, so
we built everything on
nothing is outsourced
Yeah.
from if you see how the transaction happened, right? It happens in Nexus's
Yes.
platform.
Yeah.
The many practices are being used from the SCB side. So where the actual transaction happens, obviously that's a regulated entity. So nothing from that perspective is outsourced.
The distribution.
Distribution is very.
Distribution of data,
Or the
distribution of-
technology.
The initial engagement with the customer.
which is again owned by Nexus. So we have the data which we share with Nexus, right? Which again we have the required
But
controls
it's
in
a
place.
touchpoint on your platform,
Yes. So
which is your customer in the first instance.
correct.
Okay.
So maybe the gentleman in the middle.
My question is actually fairly similar to the regulator question, but from within the bank. From a first-line risk or governance perspective, how do you view the risk profile? Is it that the bank holds the credit risk or liquidity risk, for instance, but do you view the fraud risk and cyber risk perhaps as being borne by Bukalapak in supporting that? How would you view the risk profile across the entities?
No, basically we're using the existing bank's risk profile. So basically everything is actually being assessed under the banks, all the bank's governance, about risk framework. So basically, as a customer, it's being assessed under the banks. So again, it's just the front end is the partner, but when actually customers start to onboard with us, let's say we call it BukaTabungan, it's basically, it will go through the existing process, what the bank has.
Thank you for the panel. I'm wondering, to continue on your point, on the onboarding and lending process, if you can tell us about a simplified data flow between Bukalapak and Standard Chartered on the onboarding. For example, does Bukalapak share some data, or Bukalapak hosts the scoring model and share only the score with Standard Chartered?
No, scoring model is owned by Nexus. Cybersecurity, to answer the question before, was actually owned by Nexus. So what we have is customer onboards to us. We already have 140 million customers. If a customer wants to open an account, let's say, with the bank, this data can be used for eKYC. So we share that data. Scoring then again happens at the Nexus level.
So you share raw data for
Correct.
customer and
Correct.
transactions?
No, not on transaction, just the customer data.
But how is scoring done based only on customer data, or also on the behavior of the customer?
I'm sure Nexus has some algo in place to do that, but that's not done on Bukalapak side.
Okay, but then Standard Chartered need to understand the behavior to give the customer lending or access to finance, or it's not happening yet?
So again, I mean, we use telco score, trusting social, but we also leverage some partner data. So there are some data that is injected us to basically for our underwriting process.
Thank you.
Just following on from the last question, so basically the risk of lending, if it's unsecured and secured lending, that rests on the Standard Chartered balance sheet. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Without recourse to Bukalapak.
No, our partnership with Bukalapak. Yeah. So it's basically it's.
It lies
it's-
with Standard Chartered, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you're off the hook completely. You're just essentially you're providing something very important, that is customer acquisition to SC Nexus, correct?
Correct.
Beyond that, it's all SC Nexus, and if they choose not to lend to a Bukalapak customer, so be it, or
Correct.
offer any particular product.
Yeah.
Is that the way it's viewed?
Yeah, for our partnership with Bukalapak.
But again, different CAs
Yes.
with different partners would differ, because it's the way you structure it. It's just pertaining to this particular one. Yes, that's how it is.
Got it. And that transcends lending, secured, unsecured, cards,
Yeah.
Everything.
Everything.
bank accounts, overdrafts.
Yes, we offer our banking, a full suite of banking capabilities to the partners. We agree in the beginning what the product that we're going to launch together.
And a question for, sorry, just very quick follow-on question, be very quick. So StanChart Nexus exists where, besides Indonesia? Is that capability across the region for Standard Chartered?
So we've gone live, we've announced 2 partners, both of them are in Indonesia. First one is Bukalapak, the second one is Sociola. So Sociola is like a Sephora equivalent in Indonesia. We are going to announce another market.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so it will come out very, very soon. And that is the next market. And the rest of the footprint lies mainly in ASEAN. I've got a sales and partnerships team here. Gentlemen, put up your hand. Only 1, 2. Attack those guys with your questions after this. Okay. Okay, next question.
So thanks very much. I'm going to kind of bring back to that point you said, Yogesh, on trust. Really, that's really a key aspect. That's not on the balance sheet, but it's critical. What's your responsibility, I guess, out of Standard Chartered on trust for a number of areas? Firstly, on scaling your business, but equally on those that are trading on your business when people wish to use your marketplace to buy or to find a supplier, and obviously to sell. There are obviously the regulatory issues, but I'm thinking not just obviously say trading within Indonesia market, but equally across borders, and not just within ASEAN, but maybe globally as well. That's obviously fintech and digital is facilitating a lot more of that global due diligence and trade.
Again, very broad question. Good question, though. So just to give it a scope, so we are launched just in Indonesia, so market is open just to Indonesians. So normally if you log in from outside, you can't get the delivery. They don't deliver in Singapore, right, or elsewhere. It's only in Indonesia. Now, building the trust is, I think, one is how do you control the fraud, right? How do you make sure that frauds are stopped? So a lot of frauds happen from, how do you, people use coupons. They do fraud using coupons. A lot of frauds happen in that way. Many times people order something, but they don't pay money. There's a method, this pay on delivery, they don't do it. So we have to check the user behavior and see who the user is. From security perspective again, because we are cloud native, we don't have any on-prem data center. So security becomes a bit easy for us. We are using a lot of cloud native tools. We have a business which is Bukalapak Mitra, where we educate our users how they should be using the application, how they should be using their own platforms to access our platform, when they say their platform is application logically. Internally, we make sure that 2,000 employees, which we have, are trained, and they understand the risks, they understand how the fraud works, trust and safety is the department which does it. And then from security perspective, we have an architecture in place which keeps these things secure, right? We have defense in depth, again, you've heard this term in the market, to secure our data. We follow a lot of regulations now. Being from Singapore, I understand the regulations much better. So we have, irrespective of if they have those strict regulations or not, we have implemented those controls in our environment. I think we are one of the companies in Indonesia who have their security operations center is in Singapore, right? It's managed by one of the Singapore companies. So to add on, we have a lot of use cases written with the user behavior, for an example. If you go to the server, do something, and if that activity is banned or blacklisted, we raise an alert. So we have a use case, a playbook, we know what to do in what scenario. So we have more than 300, 400 use cases in place to do. So I think being proactive helps us in building that trust and keeping that trust.
And sorry, on the trust on those people that trade, I'm assuming those on your platform who are very active can be, and this is more at a consumer level, it is the main source of income against those that might come in fraudulently, as you say, to try and take business away. How is that managed? Because if they're going to trade, they're going to need to make sure that their own reputation is protected as well.
Well, to be honest with you, we can't 100% protect it. We can't do it. Even in the companies you see when the attack happens, we educate our own people not to do funny things, but people do. When somebody sees 50% iPhone discount, they click on that without thinking what will happen, right? Same thing happens with the customers, right? They are given some either fear or greed. This is the two things used. And they end up doing silly things. And they come to us, obviously, we help them, we recover where we can, but can we secure it 100%? We cannot. I know, being customer of SCB, we get a mail from SCB on a quarterly basis saying don't click on this, don't do that, educational. We do that, we inform our customers. Obviously, when we see any impacted customer for any specific use case, we try to educate people on that use case, that what happened, so you're not phished or hacked.
All right, one last question. 10 seconds.
Sure.
No more. One last question, come.
So, okay, do you think that the adjusting the risk acceptance criteria for the banks is required in order to make the bank as a service even more successful? Because as we know, the bank, RSC is so rigid, right? And they need to adapt with the new segment and mostly for the new to bank segment. So how do you see that?
Yeah, actually, it's quite straightforward answer. Yes. So we actually, like what I mentioned earlier, that we need to get an early engagement to the internal stakeholders. That's also including the policy for the specific segment that actually we want to target it. Because for Standard Chartered, it's actually a new segment. Yeah. So we did a lot of work in the beginning to basically to adjust to align with the target that we are actually targeting. So maybe from partner to partner would be different. right? So, and then because then would we have like the first is our first partner is actually Bukalapak, and then the second part like what Fernn mentioned is social. So it's totally different segment. Yeah, so it actually requires.
So alright, I know we have one last question, but I am out of time. This young dude there is like telling me wrap up now, Fernn. So I tell you what, we can take questions outside. So I want to say thank you very much. Just a show of hands, thumbs up if the session has been useful. Don't give me thumbs down. I just want to see a thumbs up. There you go. Alright, so thanks very much for joining us today. Any Indonesian friends here? Okay, good. Download the BukaTabungan app. Okay, so I'm just going to say thank you very much to Aisya, thank you very much to Yogesh from Bukalapak. We are SC Nexus, Banking as a Service proposition from Standard Chartered Bank. To my friends in Indonesia, download the BukaTabungan app. For my friends who are interested, we are announcing a new market. And to everyone here, watch out for cybersecurity threats. All right, thanks very much. Let's continue.